In 2001, Jurassic Park 3 opened with a scene that broke the internet before the internet could be broken. A Spinosaurus kills a T-Rex. Not a chase, not a struggle. A kill. Clean. Definitive. The animal that had ruled every cinema screen for 8 years, the apex predator of the entire franchise, was dead in the first 10 minutes. Audiences lost their minds. Paleontologists lost something else entirely. Because what Steven Spielberg's team put on screen that day, the animal they chose to dethrone the king, was not the Spinosaurus. It was a fantasy built on a skeleton that had already been destroyed. And in February 2026, a team of scientists published a paper in the journal Science that changed everything we thought we knew about the real animal. What they found in the Sahara Desert was not a monster. It was something stranger, something that makes the Jurassic Park version look like a children's toy, and something that answers, finally, the question that has been open for over a century. What was Spinosaurus actually for? To understand why this matters, you need to know what happened in Munich in 1944. The original Spinosaurus fossils, the bones that German paleontologist Ernst Stromer had spent years excavating from Egypt, cataloging, describing, building an entire new species around, were destroyed in a single night. Allied bombing, the Paleontologicals Museum, gone. Not damaged, not scattered, gone. Stromer had spent decades of his life on those bones. He had argued with museum directors, navigating colonial politics, survived 2 world wars, and then the evidence for one of the largest predatory dinosaurs ever discovered was incinerated. What remained? His notes, his drawings, his descriptions, not the animal itself. And for decades, most of the 20th century, Spinosaurus existed only as a ghost, a name attached to sketches, a species that science could not build, could not challenge, could not revise, because there was nothing left to revise from. This is why Jurassic Park 3 got away with it. When the film's designers created their Spinosaurus, the sail-backed T-Rex killing monster of the Isla Sorna jungle, there was almost no complete fossil evidence to contradict them. They had artistic freedom because the science had been bombed into ash. The creature on screen was imagination wearing a scientific name. And then, slowly, over the following decades, the real animal began to emerge. The legs tell you everything, and the legs are not what you expect. A land predator, a T-Rex, an Allosaurus, an apex hunter designed to chase and kill on solid ground, has legs built for power transfer, thick femurs, deep muscle attachment points, architecture designed to accelerate a large mass across a surface. Spinosaurus has something different. Its hind limbs are proportionally shorter relative to its body than almost any other large theropod. The bone density in its lower limbs is higher than a land animal needs, the kind of density that functions as ballast, like a diving bird's bones, like an animal that needs weight to stay submerged rather than to push off the ground. Its nostrils are positioned far back on the skull, not at the tip of the snout like a land predator, but recessed further up the face, like a crocodile, like something that keeps its snout in the water while breathing from above. Its teeth are conical and interlocking, not the blade-serrated teeth of a bone-crushing killer, but the needle-precision teeth of a fish trap, designed to catch slippery, fast-moving prey in water, not to tear through the thick hide of another dinosaur. Its tail, revealed in a 2020 study, had tall paddle-shaped vertebral extensions, not the counterbalancing tail of a running biped, a swimming tail, a propulsion system. Every bone in this animal's body points to water. Every structural choice says the same thing. This was not a land predator. This was a river hunter, enormous, patient, waiting at the edge of ancient rivers in what is now North Africa, striking fish with a snout full of needles. The Jurassic Park version, running through jungle, chasing humans, killing T-Rex in open combat, is physically impossible. The legs would have failed, the posture would have been wrong, the animal would not have operated the way the film shows. Full stop. This is where it gets genuinely strange. In February 2026, Paul Sereno's team at the University of Chicago published their discovery in Science. A new species, Spinosaurus mirabilis, found in Niger in the Central Sahara, a place that was, 95 million years ago, a vast network of rivers and wetlands covering what is now the driest landscape on Earth. The animal had a crest, not a sail, a crest, a massive scimitar-shaped blade of bone rising from its skull, likely covered in keratin, the same material as a cassowary's casque, the same material as a rhino's horn, possibly colored, possibly iridescent, used for display, to signal to rivals, to attract mates, to establish presence in a territory without a fight. This is not the animal of Jurassic Park. Serino described it as a Hell Heron. Think about what a heron actually does. It stands at the water's edge, still, completely still, for minutes at a time. Then, in a movement almost too fast to follow, it strikes, accurate to within millimeters. The fish never saw it coming because the heron never moved until it was already too late. Now scale that up. A 15-meter animal standing at the edge of an ancient African river, absolutely still, the crest blazing in whatever color it carried, the needle teeth ready. And in the water below, fish the size of cars. Onchopriestus, a sawfish with teeth along its snout like knives. Coelacanths, giant lungfish, prey that would have made modern great whites look small. The Hell Heron waits. Then it strikes. And everything in that river dies in the first second.
Here is the part that nobody talks about. The real reason we got Spinosaurus wrong wasn't ignorance. It was a war crime. When Ernst Stronger's fossils burned in Munich in 1944, paleontology lost more than a specimen. It lost the evidence that would have corrected the record decades earlier. Stromer had actually been arguing with the museum for years, begging them to move the fossils out of the city as the bombing intensified. The museum refused. Too complicated, too much effort. The fossils burned on the night of April 24th, 1944. Stromer was 73 years old. His life's work, his evidence, his legacy incinerated by a war that had nothing to do with dinosaurs and everything to do with human failure. He died 3 years later. The species he had dedicated his life to would spend the next 60 years as a ghost. When Jurassic Park 3 was made in 2001, the evidence to build a real Spinosaurus simply didn't exist. The production designers did the best they could with what they had. The problem is that what they had was almost nothing. And what they built from nothing became the most famous version of this animal in history, watched by hundreds of millions of people, accepted as real, embedded in a generation's understanding of what this creature was. And every year since, every child who saw that film has carried a lie they were never told was a lie.
The 2026 discovery doesn't just add a new species, it changes the entire story of how Spinosaurus evolved. And the story is backwards from what we thought. For years, the assumption was that Spinosaurus started as a land predator and gradually adapted to water over time, a progressive march toward the river. The new fossils suggest the opposite. Spinosaurus mirabilis, the new species, appears to represent an earlier stage of Spinosaurid evolution, and it already has the wading adaptations, already has the fish trap teeth, already has the leg density, already has the retracted nostrils. The water was not the destination. The water was the starting point. Spinosaurs were river hunters from the beginning. The land predator phase that everyone assumed, the phase that Jurassic Park depicted, may never have existed at all. What we thought was a monster that chose the water is actually an animal that was always of the water, born beside ancient rivers, evolved in them, perfected for them. And when those rivers disappeared, when the climate shifted and the wetlands of North Africa dried into the Sahara, the Spinosaurs disappeared with them. Not because they were outcompeted, not because they were too slow or too strange, but because the world they had been built for no longer existed. The rivers left first, the Hell Herons followed. Jurassic Park 3 didn't lie to you maliciously. It worked with what existed. What existed was almost nothing. Drawings and notes from a scientist whose life's work had been bombed into ash, whose corrections could never be made because there was nothing left to correct from. The Spinosaurus you grew up with was a fiction built on absence. The real animal, the one emerging slowly from the Saharan sand, piece by piece, species by species, study by study, is something that Hollywood has never shown you. Not a jungle killer, not a T-Rex slayer. Something that stood at the edge of a vanished river, perfectly still, wearing a blade of bone on its skull that may have blazed with color. Waiting, because it didn't need to chase, because in its world, the flooded ancient world of North Africa, before the desert, before the sand, before everything that world became, it had already won. Everything in that water was already its prey. The only thing left to do was wait for it to come close enough. And that patience, that stillness, that absolute ownership of an entire ecosystem is far more frightening than anything that ran through a jungle in 2001. We finally found the real animal. It was never what we thought, and it is so much better.